Have you ever gotten upset because someone didn't respond the way you would have or the way that you expected them to? Were you upset because you expect someone to do something one way and they did it a different way? Do you expect others to respond the same way as you? Have you predicted the way someone would act or something that they would do because you thought you knew them really well, but then they did something completely different from what you thought? Welcome to Be a Better Person, a channel about changing the world by changing yourself. Today, I would like to talk about expectations. Unfortunately, we all have them. We all expect people to act a certain way. Normal people in society are supposed to have certain rules about courtesy, kindness, just the way things are supposed to go. So we have these expectations and we put them in our heads. Once again, remember, everything I talk about here are my thoughts, my beliefs, ideas I have. Doesn't mean they're right or wrong. Doesn't mean they'll work for you. But hopefully they spark a conversation. Expectations without communication is one of the biggest barriers in relationships. We make assumptions of what others should do or how they will respond without communicating what our expectations are. When we get in confrontations or we're silent, we give the silent treatment because someone didn't respond a certain way that we thought they should. And we don't ask why they responded how they did. We don't see what their motivations are. We make our assumptions. We have our expectations. And then not communicating our expectations can cause issues and resentments in our daily lives. So let's say, as a boss or a colleague at work, if you don't say what your expectations are for that other person in a project or in daily work or in production, then how can you get upset when they don't reach those things or they don't do the things that you said? You didn't tell them what your expectations were. You didn't communicate clearly what you expected of them, but now you're angry or you're upset or you're disappointed because they didn't meet your expectations. Family members, the same exact thing. Your children, your spouse, your mom, your dad, you have expectations. And if you don't communicate the expectations, hey, when you watch my kid, I expect this, this, and this to follow my same rules. But if you don't say that and you just think that in your head, they're supposed to know. They're just supposed to know. They're supposed to read my mind and know what I wanted out of them. Same exact thing with friends. You just expect, well, they should call me because I called them. No, maybe they're a completely different person. Maybe they don't like to talk on the phone. Maybe they don't like to text. Maybe they just like to wait and see when you come visit them. Maybe they hate to travel. Maybe they don't like staying any place besides their house. But you make expectations. You say, well, they should do this because I do that. And then even strangers, again, like I said, norms for everyday society, like people should just be nice. People should not make rude comments. And then when they do, because your expectations that everybody should be the way that you are, you're all of a sudden mad at that person because they didn't respond or do what you thought they should do. So again, having expectations can lead to a lot of issues and make life way more difficult. And I know it's really simple to just go, well, let's not have any expectations. I think that you need to have some expectations, but you need to communicate them, and you need to not get upset when they're not met because, once again, everybody's different. How some people respond to an issue is different from other people's responding to issues. How I was raised might make me be different in situations than how someone else was raised. So again, let's look at possibly some ways that we can change and not have negative things through expectations. So, don't expect things from others that we wouldn't expect from ourselves. Again, it's like a practice what you preach thing. I expect you to act this way, but I don't have to. Let's not do that. because that's another way that you can come into conflicts and resolutions with everyday life. Remember, your expectations are about you, not the other people. Just because you had an expectation doesn't mean they're a bad person, doesn't mean that they're terrible or hideous because they didn't respond to what you expected. That's all on you. That's not about them. It's about you. Your expectations were your expectations. Did you communicate what you expected from them? And guess what? Just because you expect it from them doesn't mean they have to give you that. Because maybe it's an inconvenience to them. Maybe that's not just the way they are. Maybe that's something that they don't like. So let's just remember, expectations are not about the other person. They're about you. Communicate clearly what you expect. Again, it doesn't mean that they're going to do it, but at least you made your expectations clear. And maybe, like I said, they didn't respond that way because they thought their way was better, or they didn't respond that way because they have different moral values, or they didn't respond that way because they have a different belief system. All those things can cause, but at least you communicated your expectations. Still about you, not about them, but you communicated them. Don't expect you from other people. Once again, these things are all pretty basic and they all line up the same. You can't expect you from other people because they are not you. You are completely separate from other people. They are not you. So don't expect you from other people. And guess what? If you don't expect anything from anyone, you'll never be let down. Again, I know that that's very unreasonable and probably something that's not attainable, but you just have to think, if I don't expect something from somebody, how can I be disappointed? Yeah, you won't be disappointed. You say, well, that's just how they are. Either I can deal with that's how they are, or I can change my interactions with them or how often I interact with them. Work is a hard thing because that is someplace that you have to go if you want to keep that job. And some people can't just go, I don't like this job anymore, I'm leaving. Some people financially aren't able to do those things. However, that is a whole different situation as well, because you have to have expectations of your employees because they're trying to accomplish a goal of the company. They're trying to accomplish the goals that you've set forward. That's way different than friends and families and strangers. There is some things there that they have to meet your expectations or explain why they're not meeting your expectations. That's one that's completely different from the other three. So sometimes you expect you out of others, and that's never going to happen, even at work. So let's always think about our expectations. Maybe sometimes our expectations are the bar's way up here when the person's only capable of right here. So again, that's another thing that you have to take into consideration when you have your expectations. Are my expectations of these people, can they attain them? Or am I asking for way too much? Try to limit your expectations, and I think that you'll become a much happier person if you don't say, well, I expect this from this person, even though I didn't communicate. Oh, they're terrible because they didn't meet my expectations. No, that's on you. So what are some things that you do to not have expectations? How do you clearly communicate your expectations? What do you do when your expectations aren't met? Is it anger? Is it better communication? Let's talk about how expectations can be both good and or bad. Remember, your smile makes me smile. Be kind, be grateful, be helpful, and until next time, have a stupendous day. Thanks for watching.